Hello and welcome back to Cultivated World, the channel that brings you the good stuff from the world of watches. Today we're looking at the Rolex Rolesor GMT Master 2 in oyster steel and Everose gold. We'll be looking at the details of this watch and discussing whether you should even consider a two-tone Rolex in the first place. This is the Rolex GMT Master 2 reference 126711CHNR, which was launched at Bezel World in 2018. This was the same year that the so-called ceramic Pepsi GMT was launched, which unsurprisingly took the lion's share of the hype. If you haven't already seen our review of this GMT, we'll leave a link in the description below, so be sure to check that one out afterwards. There's been much talk about the Rootbeer moniker for this watch. Is it a Rootbeer? Is it not a Rootbeer? Well, the original was made with yellow gold, and it was specified with a brown coloured dial. Neither of these attributes are featured on this model, but it does feature brown on the bezel insert. The lower half of the bezel though, and not the top. Nonetheless, I digress. Frankly, I don't really care what you call it. Talking about the bezel insert, this is the first time Rolex has featured brown ceramic, which is combined here with black to represent the hours of daylight and the hours of darkness respectively. As with all coloured Rolex bezels, the shade of the colour looks dramatically different depending on the ambient light. The brown on this bezel can go from a light milk chocolate colour all the way through to a dark chocolate colour. The Cerachrom Insert is set within the bezel, which is made from the proprietary 18-karat rose gold from Rolex called Everose. As you would expect from a Rolex GMT, the bezel is bi-directional and can be used to tell the time in different time zones. The black dial is decorated with Everose hour markers as well as Everose hands. Even the GMT hand is in Everose, which is unlike other GMT models which feature a coloured hand matching the lower colour of the bezel insert. Should Rolex have done the same here with a brown coloured GMT hand? Whilst we're speculating, what if Rolex had used a brown dial just like the original? What do you guys think? Other Everose highlights include the GMT Master 2 script on the dial, the PVD applied markers on the bezel insert, and the triplock screw-down crown, which helps to facilitate a respectable water resistance rating of 100 meters. The case is made from 904L steel, or oyster steel as Rolex likes to call it, with brushed lugs and polished sides. This is our first video of the Rolex GMT since the all-new Submariner was launched this year, with its thicker bracelet and sleek new case design. Maybe this is something Rolex should also apply to the GMT, but I can't see them doing it anytime soon, considering that the whole GMT line was refreshed relatively recently. This GMT features the much-loved oyster bracelet. Many were disappointed to see the introduction of the Jubilee bracelet on the steel models, and now, if you want your new GMT Master 2 with an oyster bracelet, you have to go gold. The outer links on the bracelet are made from oyster steel and are brushed with polished sides. The Everose center links are polished and contrast against the steel. The Everose follows through to the folding oyster lock safety clasp. The bracelet is completed with the EasyLink Comfort Extension link, which allows 5mm of on-the-go adjustment, which is perfect for the intended user of the GMT, traveling from country to country. As your wrist expands in warmer climates, you can adjust the bracelet and your GMT is as comfortable as ever to wear. Rolex has been making two-tone watches for decades. and it took me a little bit of time to really start appreciating them for what they are. For anyone that knows me personally, I don't really like to compromise, and I don't generally partake in moderation. In fact, the only thing I probably moderate is moderation itself. I always thought that two-tone watches were just a tragic compromise. They were bought by wannabes that wanted a solid gold watch to look flash, but didn't have the means to afford one. By moderating the amount of gold used, Rolex could more than half the price of the watch to make them more accessible to this audience. However, although that may be the case for some, on the whole, I don't believe that's true. Although two-tone watches are a stepping stone towards a solid gold watch, they do have their own unique character, and after spending some time with a number of these watches, I've finally come to appreciate that they do have a rightful place in the Rolex lineup. It's no surprise that Rolex have understood this for a long time, even going as far as coining the term Rolesor for their watches which are constructed with the combination of steel and gold. We will be making a direct comparison between these two Rolex GMT watches in an upcoming video, so please subscribe to ensure that you don't miss out on that one. This Rolesor GMT definitely has a more sophisticated vibe about it than any of the steel GMT versions available today. It will be worn by someone that wants precious metal but doesn't want to baby it around. With the steel edges, it is less susceptible to scratches and dings than the solid gold version would be. The Rolesor GMT is significantly closer to an everyday watch in comparison to a modern solid gold Rolex. However, the Rolesor is still more fancy than a simple steel GMT model. Whenever I see a Rolesor model now, for me at least, I no longer see them as a simple compromise. I see the Rolesor models as a third dimension to explore all on its own. What do you think of the Rolesor models from Rolex? Are they just a compromise? Or are they beautiful in their own right? Please let us know your thoughts in the comments section below. Thank you very much for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and remember to hit that bell icon.